Hello everyone, my name is Nicholas Reid from Reid Corporate, and on behalf of Essential Metals, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this shareholder and investor webinar. It's been a busy year so far for Essential, with some of the key milestones achieved, including the completion of a capital consolidation and name change, the addition of new expertise, both to the company's board and senior management team, and more recently, the announcement of some exciting updates, including a resource update for the Dome North lithium project, and some exciting developments with the company's gold exploration portfolio here in WA. It's the company's gold assets that will feature quite prominently in today's presentation, with Essential recently announcing plans to drill a series of high-priority gold targets at the Juglah Dome project, located just 55 kilometres from Australia's gold capital, Kalgoorlie. To run you through this exciting opportunity and give you an update on the company's other assets, it's my pleasure to introduce Essential Metals Managing Director, Tim Spencer, here in Perth. And with Tim, alongside him, we also have the company's recently appointed Exploration Manager, Andrew Dunn. So a warm welcome to both Tim and Andrew in the Perth office. Before we begin, thanks both gentlemen. Before we begin, just a reminder that if you would like to register a question, please use the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Type it in and send it through, and if you can please do that as soon as you can or as soon as you think of it, and I'll put all of the questions to Tim and Andrew at the end. So without any further ado, if I could ask Tim to kick off this morning and walk us through the Essential Metals story. Tim, please go ahead.
Thanks very much for the introduction, Nicholas, and welcome to all shareholders and potential shareholders. Well, as Nicholas pointed out, Essential Metals has been through a bit of a transition this year. We've refreshed the management team and the board, the name, and also a share consolidation, just to try and reset our corporate structure. So I'll just step you through, who we are. Of course, there are forward-looking statements and disclosures to be read at your leisure. So why should Essential Metals be an essential part of your investment portfolio? Well, we are multi-commodity and we don't shy away from that. Essentially, we've got three really good projects and they happen to cross gold, nickel, and cobalt, and also lithium and cesium. And they're really well located projects too. They sit close to major mining centres of Kalgoorlie and Norseman. So they're very easy for us to access as infrastructure, and they certainly they sit in tier one mining jurisdictions. Essential Metals also has a really experienced management and board. We've got guys on the board. Craig McGowan has been an investment banker for a long time, very experienced in corporate matters and also running mining operations. Paul Payne recently joined us, and also Warren Hallam, and I'll give you a bit more detail on on their experience. We're also well funded, and part of our change to Essential Metals was to reflect the fact that we believe in mining. We believe mining is an important part of the future, particularly a sustainable future, and we want to be part of that. And also we want to, fit in as much as we can with ESG principles. So where are we? Well, our main projects are located near Kalgoorlie and Norseman, as you can see there. We've got our Golden Ridge and Juglah Dome projects to the east of Kalgoorlie. We've got three gold joint ventures in which we're free carried, one in the Pilbara and two down in the eastern goldfields near Kalgoorlie. And we also have our lithium cesium project, which is the Pioneer Dome, which we break into Dome North lithium and the Sinclair cesium mine, and they're just north of Norseman. We also have the Blair nickel mine, which sits as part of Golden Ridge in just east of Kalgoorlie. In terms of the corporate profile, our share price is sitting around 9 cents, just a little bit below today, I think. Caps us at about 14 mil. We've got just under $3 million in the bank. We've also got $500,000 worth of listed shares that we can monetize, and we will do that. And so it gives us an enterprise value of around $11 million. In my view, the sum of the parts is greater than that, but obviously the share market isn't convinced of that yet, and that's our job to convince it. As you can see, we've got a small team, but it's pretty effective. We've got myself. My background is in project development from a commercial perspective, and I was brought on board to assist with the Sinclair mine development. Carl Travaglini is an experienced CFO COSEC with gold and lithium background, and recently we were joined by Andrew Dunn, who's a very experienced gold geologist, exploration manager, background with Goldfields and Millennium. Our board is made up of 3 non-execs. We have Craig McGowan, ex-DJ Carmichael chairman, and he's also a non-exec director of several listed companies and part of New Holland Capital, a corporate advisory firm. Paul Payne is a very experienced resource geologist, was founding director of Dacian. And Warren Hallam is a ex-MD of Metals X. He's a metallurgist by training, has run big operations, and has very good corporate experience as well. The team we have, we cover the spectrum of what you need in a mining company in terms of skill sets and experience. And we've got a team of geologists who are very experienced, also very enthusiastic, and are looking to help us push this company forward. So we'll talk a bit more now about the golden part of our project portfolio. So it's made up of two main arms. We've got our 100% owned projects near Kalgoorlie, Juglah Dome and Golden Ridge. And we also have, I suppose they're like gold options. We've got 3 reasonably sized free carried interests between 25 and 30% in the Kangan JV with Novo Resources and Sumitomo in the Pilbara, the Accra JV with Northern Star, and also the Balagundi JV with Black Cat Syndicate. And we'll talk in a bit more detail as we go through this presentation. So over to Juglah Dome, and I'll just bring in Andy Dunn as well. So Juglah Dome is around 55 k's east of Kalgoorlie. It sits in a great location. It's surrounded by reasonably sized gold deposits and mining operations. To the north, we've got the Majestic and Imperial deposits, ex-Silver Lake now with Black Cat. And Black Cat also picked up a tract of land heading further north west of there as well. And they've also picked up the Trojan deposit, which is just to the northeast, you'd see on that diagram on the left. Further south, we have Silver Lake's Daisy Complex and also its Randall's Complex to the south. So we're in a really good location here. Juglah Dome has, you could say it's been underexplored, and we could probably go into a little bit of reasoning why that's occurred. There are multiple gold targets. There's some really good hits that have been drilled over the journey, but just haven't been followed up with the right discipline and resources in terms of technical and financial, I think, to apply to it. Back in the early 2000s, a couple of holes were drilled in the Gards prospect. The hits that were intersected are quite good in today's market. Back then, they probably weren't. And that's a pretty obvious target for us to walk up and drill. So when we look at the Gards prospect, you can see it running in a northwest structure. We've mapped the outcrop and sub-outcrop for over 1.2 kilometres, and then it presumably goes undercover. It's been rock chip across the length and breadth of it. It is anomalous for gold across that structure. It had one panel of 5 holes put into it in 2003 by Placidone as part of a joint venture with Newcrest. As they stepped across the structure, they put 2 holes through it. Both intersected gold mineralisation. As you can see, they're 9 metres at 1.15 grams per tonne from 30 metres. so pretty shallow. And then straight below it, the next hole intersected 7 metres at 1.5 grams from 75 metres. So it does give some indication of consistency in mineralisation and also in thickness. So as part of this upcoming drill program later in the month, we'll test that structure along around 700 metres of strike with another 4 panels, and then we'll step back and take in the results, reinterpret, and if all going well, then we'll get back in there and re-drill in the March quarter. Is there anything you want to add to that, Andy, in terms of setting?
No, it's basically the main target is a porphyry hosted in a shear zone, and it's really that brittle fracturing which has allowed the fluids and the gold to sort of localise in that porphyry.
To the west of Juglah Dome, and if you look in the, I apologise, it's not labelled, but in the top right-hand corner you can see a greenish shape. That's essentially the edge of the Gards prospect. So we're now heading west across towards the Golden Shovel prospect. And Golden Shovel is really interesting in that it's got gold mineralisation, it's got historical workings with some pretty high rock chips through it. In terms of gold, there's 8 grams per tonne, but it's also multi-element too. So there's in the cherts that have been rock chipped, there's also evidence of high silver, zinc, lead. And I think in the past, perhaps Juglah Dome was looked at as a bit more of a base metals or VMS style project with a view to looking at the gold, but not enough probably focus on the gold side of it. In terms of this Golden Shovel prospect, it was last drilled in 1992, and in fact, we can't find any data that relates to those holes. A report was prepared by Western Mining, who had this tenement at one point, and their sort of explanation was evidence of holes drilled, no assays available. So we still think it's a pretty attractive prospect, and we can't wait to put our a couple of holes into it to test it in this coming drill program. Further north from Gards and Golden Shovel, I'll just step back to this slide here. So we've got Gards and Golden Shovel to the southernmost prospects there. If you step further north into the sort of north-central zone, you'll see there's Moonbaker. And Moonbaker will be the third prospect that we'll test as part of this upcoming drill program. Andy, can you talk us through Moonbaker?
So Moonbaker was a previous anomaly, regolith anomaly. It was drilled with RAB initially and then followed up with RAB. The interpretation of those results was that it was east dipping based on the grades within the hole. As such, the follow-up drilling with 2 RC holes was drilled to the west, and unfortunately they didn't locate the mineralisation in the expected position. So it's been reinterpreted that the what has been intersected in a lot of RAB was actually supergene dispersion, and there's potentially a west dipping mineralised structure which is consistent with the orientation from Gards and I guess from Trojan as well. There's limited outcrop in that area, so what we could ascertain from that, there was some structural measurements indicating it also could be west dipping. So the aim of the upcoming program is to confirm a west dipping structure, test in bedrock, confirm that dip, and test along strike to confirm the strike of the orientation in the area of poor outcrop.
Thanks, Andy. We'll move now across to Golden Ridge. Golden Ridge is a tantalising project. And I say that because it's been drilled. It's had a lot of drilling. And this harks back to the days of Western Mining when they were looking for nickel. And in fact, they were only looking for nickel. And one of the stats we've pulled out through our data trawling is the fact that only 20% of the nickel holes drilled were actually assayed for gold as well. So a lot of missed opportunity there to test for gold, but that's by the by. And you know, the Blair nickel mine was discovered in the late 1960s. It was mined in the 80s and 90s, and that was the focus. There wasn't a lot of exploration done around it because people were focused on the mine. Australian Mines took over Blair in 2003 and ran it till 2008. And again, they were in survival mode for a lot of that period and didn't waste or spend money on exploration. So there's at least a dozen good gold prospects that have been identified over the journey. Some have been tested, particularly the low-hanging fruit like Flying Ant and 18-footer, where some really good intersections were hit. It looks like the geology is pretty complex, so it's not one big long structure that you can just keep following along. And I'll get you to explain that, Andy. But essentially, previous explorers look like they've got good results. They've tested with one or two holes, haven't replicated, and then have sort of walked away to test something else. In the history of Pioneer Essential Metals, part of that reason was because lithium was discovered, or lithium was looked for in Pioneer Dome back in 2015-16, and that really became the focus of the company. And Golden Ridge sort of took a back seat during that time, the last 5 years. Can you add a bit of context?
In terms of the geology out in that area, it's pretty poorly understood, and that's partly due to the lack of outcrop, but also the regolith is actually quite complex out there. So the previous soil samplings didn't necessarily reflect what was at the bedrock. So the real opportunity in this is piecing together the geology and understanding controls on the mineralisation that has been intersected, and also understanding the regolith and the potential hidden anomalies within that soil data sets to give us new targets as well. So we've been through that exercise, and we've identified an area to the east of 18-footer.
We'll just talk about that area now. We've named it the AC75 prospect. I know it's a bit of an unusual name, but we've got to follow the theme of previous named prospects. We're all named after small yachts or yachts, Flying Ant and 18-footer. And the AC75 is the new whiz-bang version that's going to be racing in the America's Cup. But in terms of the prospect, just perhaps give us some background as to why we think it's pretty attractive.
Yeah, so this, unlike 18-footer and Flying Ant, they're hosted in sediments and ultramafics. This it's been interpreted where AC75 is that we actually got basalt. So it's probably a more likely to be more consistent and better host for gold mineralisation if the gold-bearing fluids go through there. There's two anomalies identified within that ellipse. One is about 800 metres long, the other one is about 1 kilometre long, and they're plus 20 ppb gold and up to 87 ppb gold. These these are coincidence with two mag-low features which trend north-south, and these mag-low features are associated with a lot of gold deposits in the eastern goldfields.
And they're reasonably long targets too. They're around 1 kilometre long each, so there's a pretty big zone for us to test. The reason we're not doing that in November, we need to do some more work to just probably define where we want to drill, and the idea is to test that early in the March quarter. In terms of our free carry gold interests, and I'll go through them as they're listed there. So we have the Balagundi joint venture, farming joint venture. So Gundy sort of sits northeast of Kalgoorlie and adjacent to Black Cat Murray mining centre that they're planning and moving ahead with. We're free carried until a decision to mine, our 25% interest, and we also hold around $100,000 worth of Black Cat shares. The Kangaroo venture up in the Pilbara consists of 4 tenements, and that's subject to a farm in joint venture with Novo Resources Corporation and jointly with Sumitomo Corporation. We're 30% free carried to a decision to mine. We've got 100,000 shares in Novo, currently just under $400,000. And again, it's one of those, the Kangaroo mine is really interesting. I take my hat off to the progress and the approach that Novo are taking. It's pretty aggressive. It's out there in terms of its thinking, and they've got such a good team and culture in that company. So we wish them well. That means a good result for us as well. The progress on our ground has been slow because it's the Kangan project sits within the Greater Egina project that Novo controls, and they're working through heritage, and I believe that they'll be starting. They've done some sampling during this quarter, and we're doing some larger bulk sampling, or it's been planned for the December quarter before the shutdown for the hot period. The Aqua joint venture is northeast of Kalgoorlie. It's with Northern Star Resources, who need no introduction. Again, we've got a 25% free carry to a decision to mine. Northern Star have spent nearly $4 million to date in this joint venture over the last 4 years. They assure us that it's a key part of their exploration portfolio, and they're working methodically through Aqua. Right, just to touch on our lithium and cesium, and this is part of, I suppose, why as a junior company we need to have hang our hat on more than one commodity and more than one project. Our lithium project is actually really good. We've got a good high grade, 1.21%, 11 million tonnes at Dome North. We've only conducted 3 drilling programs through that area, and there's a lot more work to be done. We realise that in this market that we can go and spend $500,000 or $1 million drilling, but it just won't get any market traction, so it makes it difficult for us. We've got to preserve our cash, and that's one of the challenges with it when you're a junior company, is that you have to balance the activities that you can conduct, and you've got to focus on things that people are going to be immediately attracted to. But Dome North is a serious lithium project. To the south of Dome North, we have the Sinclair mine. Just a bit more on Dome North. We've got it's 3 mineralised pegmatites that have been discovered so far that make up the 11 million tonnes. They look like they're mineralised to surface, which means that from a mining perspective, you're in ore relatively quickly. And Dome North sits just 10 kilometres from a main infrastructure in terms of a highway, gas and water. So that's a huge tick for us, and it's only less than 300 k's from the Esperance port. So we're in the throes of finishing off our metallurgical test work. The results of that should be coming out shortly. We've already announced the fact that we're getting recoveries of just under 70%. We hope to improve that to get at or over 70% if all things going well. And that just then ticks a big box in terms of the technical specification of Dome North being able to be processed through to a saleable product. We continue with our field work in Dome North in the background because we really need to probably double the size of the resource to start to get ready for a turn in the lithium market, which looks like it'll happen during 2021. In terms of the Sinclair cesium mine, look, this was a great success for a small company. It generated $10 million in operating surplus. It was based on such an unusual mineral, so it was risky from the way this mineral forms. There's only 2 other commercial deposits that we know of in the world. And we get shareholders asking us to just chase cesium. You've got to understand that it needs a really unique environment for it to form. And when it does form, it's got a structural control around it in terms of the other associated minerals that tell you when you're in the system. So we're pretty comfortable that we've got a really good knowledge of or understanding of when we are in the system and how far that system extends. We knew that testing to the north of the cesium mine, Sinclair mine, was we'd already had some hits there, so we understood the structural controls. It did look like it was thinning out. We've now tested that. We're still waiting for the results to come back. It looks like the central zone, that big pink area to the right of the pit, does exist. It's about 6 metres wide, 20 metres long. That's not a lot in terms of tonnage, but we need to come back. And in between the pit and that zone, unfortunately, we weren't able to intersect significant quantities of pollucite, the cesium-bearing mineral. So at this point in time, we need to do some more work on understanding. We tested further north of the central zone, and again, the surrounding geology told us that it was pinching out. So we just need to step back now and look at other areas to work out, should we target somewhere else for cesium? But it is the eye of the needle in the haystack, not just the needle. I touched before on the Blair nickel mine. Look, it sits there. It was mined to 900 metres deep. It's still open at depth. Fantastic grades you can see on the left-hand side. Again, it's a big ask for a junior company like us to try and reopen the mine to be able to drill underground or drill from surface. You're talking, several millions to do that. The size of the prize, of course, is important, and the focus has always been on trying to find another, closer to surface deposit. And to date, that hasn't been achieved, but that's not to say that it won't be found. It just needs some big dollars and a lot of expertise to make that happen. Right, so why should you add essential metals to your portfolio now? Well, we're about to start drilling 3 pretty good, exciting gold prospects at Juglah Dome. One of them is a fairly obvious one for our point of view. Doesn't guarantee success, but it looks pretty good. And we'll know what the results of that in January. We're making sense of Golden Ridge's many tantalising gold anomalies. It's pretty complex. There is a lot of gold on Golden Ridge, and we can't wait to start testing that in the March quarter. Hopefully that we've got the results back from Juglah Dome, and they can lead us onto a second program of drilling there as well. We've already got 11 million tonnes of a lithium resource. Today, that doesn't mean a lot in this market. It'll mean it's something completely different once the market turns, which it will. And we also have the Sinclair cesium mine. It's a high value product. It's worth us spending some time looking for more. It's just in terms of trying to find further deposits, it's a bit of a stretch, but we'll have a go. And we also have the Blair nickel mine, which is sitting there. It's a deposit. You always look for other mine deposits near existing deposits. So, that's pretty exciting for us. And we've got a good team that's working really hard and diligently on the fundamentals, because ultimately, for us to get the share price up, we have to achieve, real results in the ground, and that's what we're focused on. There's the team. Our values. Well, it's about excellence. It's about operating safely, and it's operating in a sustainable way. And we're all pretty much focused and enthused and encouraged to keep working on our projects, and we hope our shareholders come along for the ride as well. Thank you very much.
Gents, are you there? Thanks very much for the run through. Just a reminder to everyone listening, if you do have a question, please use the Q&A tab to log that question. Before we go to online questions, gents, I'll just go to a couple that have come in via email that were sent in before today's presentation. The first one is, can you give us a bit of an explanation in your view as to why these gold projects, several of which have some quite outstanding intercepts historically, why they've been sitting there virtually untouched, in some cases since the 90s and early 2000s. Well, how come nothing's been done to progress the gold potential? Can you give us some comments on that?
Yeah, so the Juglah Dome was originally thought to be, I guess, a VMS domain, and as such, WMC spent most of their time looking for VMS. When it was switched to gold in the early 2000s by Placer Dome, I mean, the gold price wasn't that great, so the intersections back at that time were not as sort of alluring as, what they are now. Such a suppressive gold price. In terms of Golden Ridge, a lot of the focus was on nickel, as previously we went through. It's the real gold projects were stuff that had already been outcropped in historic mining, and there'd been ad hoc sporadic drilling on sort of gold and soil anomalies, but nothing systematic to follow up, because it was never a focus of WMC and subsequent holders.
Okay, thanks. So therein lies the opportunity. Another investor has asked if you can give us a little more specific detail about the upcoming drilling program. How many meters? When exactly will you start? And can you give us? I think you did give a broad indication of timing of results, but can you just give us a quick run through on when you expect assays to start coming in?
So we've got a drilling contractor lined up for near the end of November. In terms of meters, that'll depend on what we're seeing in the ground when we drill. So the exact meters as yet is not known. If we're successful, there'll be more meters. If we're not so successful, it'll be less meters. In terms of assays, there's a lot of demand in the industry for analysis and drilling. So the turnaround times are going to be a little bit longer. So we're thinking, assays back early January from the last of the drilling at Juglah Dome.
And just sort of, as a broad number, it's going to be 3,000 to 5,000 metre program, and as Andy alluded to, it's success dependent. If we see stuff coming out of the hole that is really interesting, we have a pretty flexible decision process that we can pretty much approve, as it's happening to drill more holes if we need to.
Excellent. Gents, another investor has asked online, he says Essential and previously Pioneer have held the leases at Juglah Dome for quite a few years. Originally 4 leases or lease applications, later 3. We now have 1 property. Is this a consolidation of the earlier properties?
Mostly, yes, correct. Yeah, it is.
With additional tenure to the south.
Yep.
Okay, great. Another email question. Investor has asked, can you give us a quick overview of what your strategic thinking is in respect to the Dome North Lithium project? Is your thinking that you'll continue to grow the resource? Would you consider a development pathway, or would you consider a possible sale of the asset?
Well, the approach is where the resource sits today, for it to be a good, viable, self-sustaining operation, it needs to be bigger. So exploration is important there to expand that resource. As a general guide, we'd be aiming to at least double it. If someone was to come across, and we've already had people approach us to buy the project, well, then that would obviously be considered. Everything is available for sale at a price, but we're not going to be selling at the bottom of the market at a low price. So the intention will be to keep exploring, to add value, because that's what we do. But, you know, if a sensible opportunity comes up to collaborate with someone else, then we'd look at it.
Okay, great. Now, turning to other assets in the portfolio, an investor's asked here what's happening at Kadina. Now, I'm not sure if that's not a project familiar to me. I wonder if you might mean Kangan, unless you have a Kadina I'm not aware of.
No, I'd say it's a misspell, and I presume Kangan.
Kangan, yeah.
So Novo are they're still in the process of farming in. I think they've just about reached that threshold, and the work on the ground has been preliminary in the sense that they've actually now taken some samples and they're in the process of being evaluated. They've done a lot of reconnaissance mapping, and during the December quarter, they're planning to do some bulk sampling in 2 prospect areas. As we've explained previously, it's unfortunately because the fact that Novo is a Canadian company, it doesn't comply with JORC standards, so it's really difficult for us to publish their specific results. The reality is there hasn't been a lot yet for Kangan, and we're working at a way to be able to do that once they actually start to get it on the ground in earnest, so that we can keep shareholders informed on that.
Great, thank you very much. A quick one just on nickel. Given the positive outlook for the nickel market, which a number of companies are talking about, do you plan any additional work on your nickel assets in the near future?
Yeah, look, we do. We're as part of the sort of the whole reassessment of Golden Ridge, it's taking in both the nickel and gold prospectivity. So there's a lot of information that needs to be reprocessed and reinterpreted. But we're working up some targets there. You know, quite a few of the targets have already been tested, or prospects have been tested. There are a few more that we think that should be tested too. So we're working on those. And also actually Pioneer Dome has some nickel prospectivity. Again, we don't want to talk about it because otherwise people say, well, you've got 10 things on your plate. But as part of just being systematic, we look at these things and we work through them.
Great, thanks, Tim. And look, just a final one. Investor asked online, do you feel that the company is progressing slower than expected for retail investors?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, it's one of those things that retail investors tend to, and I'm a retail investor. You know, we tend to want results, and we tend to want success, and we want companies to deliver month by month. The reality is, when you want to do things properly, you've got to take your time and work through the information and work up your story. We're working as hard as we can. We're a small team. Just remember that. We're constrained by our size. If I could throw 10 geologists at it and $10 million for drilling, we'd make a lot more progress. But we can't do that without diluting the hell out of our existing shareholder base. So it's a bit of a step ladder. I'm hoping that once we get some traction going with Juglah Dome, we'll see some share price re-rating, and then gives us more opportunity to start to move at a faster pace. But just one, I know that sometimes junior companies get accused of being, slow or not focused. We'll work really hard here, and we are focused.
Thanks, Tim. Just another quick one. Can you give us an update about the Leo Dam project? I think the last news on that was in April.
So Leo Dam is a nickel sulfide prospect that sits about 2 kilometres north of the Blair mine. We drilled that and conducted downhole EM earlier in this year. The half a dozen holes we put in didn't find the footwall contact and did show up a conductor further to the east. The intention was to always go back and drill that, but it has to make sense. You can't just go and drill one hole. You've got to make sure you've got a program that stacks up. So we will get back and do that. I can't tell you at the moment we're focused on the gold. We can't do everything on all projects. So the focus for the next 3 to 6 months is to work up our gold projects. But we're assessing when we go back to Golden Ridge in the March quarter, what we can do at Leo Dam, if and when we should drill to test further at the prospect.
Fantastic. We don't have any other online questions, Tim, so do you want to maybe just give us a quick sort of 30-second wrap-up of why we should keep a close watch on essential metals over the next few months?
Yeah, look, I think I know that I sense that with some shareholders, they are frustrated because of the share price hasn't moved over the last 6 months. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. We think we're now reaching a point where we're actually going to start to get some results on the ground, which is where it counts. So I think the next 6 months is going to be a lot different, hopefully, to the last 6. Fantastic.
Well, look, thank you very much on behalf of everyone who's tuned in today. Thanks very much to Tim and Andrew for the run through, and thank you to everyone for joining. We do appreciate your time this morning. Just a quick concluding note that Tim will be presenting at the Resources Rising Stars Investor Forum, which kicks off next week. It's running on Tuesday the 10th and Wednesday the 11th of November. If you are in Perth, you're welcome to come down to the Melbourne Hotel to listen. He's presenting at 9:20 a.m. on Tuesday the 10th of November. If you're in the Gold Coast, we have a Gold Coast hub at the Royal Pines Resort with around 270 odd investors gathering over there. And of course, in these times, a large number of people will be tuning in to listen to our live webcast. So if you'd like to register, go to our website, www.resourcesrisingstars.com.au/events, and you can find out more information there and register for next week's conference. So a big thank you to Tim and Andrew for today's presentation. Thank you all for joining us, and have a good day. We'll be in touch again.
Thank you. Thanks for all attendees and shareholders. Cheers.